Hello out to all you wonderful people. This is Andre the Game Idea Guy. Thank you once again for lending me your time and your ear listening into another Gamer Stuff discussion. And this time we're going to be talking about Joy-Con drift. And if it is really a new thing like people seem to want to make it out to be, which it isn't. Analog sticks have actually had issues with drift since the N64 and the PS1, actually probably even further back than that, because I know that's not where analogs actually started, but I think that's where analogs gained popularity. But analog sticks have had drift issues on controllers for a long period of time. One is because gamers actually hold their controllers pretty tight. Like, we hold our controllers super tight when we're playing a game. And the more intense the game is, the stronger our grip is. I'm not gonna lie, I know I do it. Like, I've learned over the years how to negate that some myself, so my controllers last longer. But every console that I have had up until the GameCube and the GameCube, PS2, and OG Xbox, all of those controllers had issues with drift. And I realized that was just because of me, because I was pressing down too hard on the analog sticks. Now, granted, I will say from what I have seen and heard through many different reports, the issues with Joy-Con drift are far worse. And that's probably because of the material the controller is made out of. But at the same time, these are also much smaller controllers with much smaller analog sticks. To be fully honest, unless they're going to completely redesign the Joy-Cons to make them bigger, there's not much that they can really do to fix that issue. To be fully honest, I'm not saying that it doesn't exist like Nintendo did. It does exist, but it doesn't exist in a vacuum. You do the same thing with an Xbox Series X controller, or with the PS5 controller, or even with the PS4 or Xbox One controller, and you press down on those controllers long enough, you will find that those analogs will stick. They'll get stuck. And when you finally do unstick them, there'll be a tendency that, unfortunately, with those controllers in, the game will read it as if it's putting in an input. It happens, unfortunately. I'm not trying to justify it. I'm just saying this happens everywhere. There's not a controller out there with analog sticks right now that will not have the ability to have drift on it. I'm saying that from personal experience. I know that for a fact. It's just based on how analogs are designed. And again, unfortunately, the Switch's controllers, the Joy-Cons, are small. Their analog sticks are small. So you're more likely to get drift out of it, especially when people get into their game and they get hyped up. You're more likely to press harder on that controller than you think you actually are. But that's the one thing people don't want to think about. And that's another thing people don't talk about when it comes down to these technical sorts of issues. This is a user-generated issue. Yes, the design of the controller could be better, but this is literally a user-generated issue. Something that people themselves can fix. Yeah, people are going to be like, well, they should have designed it better. I basically just said that. They could have been designed better. I'm not excusing that. But what I'm saying is that part of the reason for it being so bad is because people are holding onto their controllers tighter than they actually know. Well, see, people don't understand when you're playing a video game, especially something that's action-oriented or it's kind of got like a deep-driven story, and you really get into it, you are holding onto those controllers tight. Like, I'll just preface this as, I'll use this as an example. If I play a game like Halo, and I'm in a a Slayer match with a bunch of people, and there's a lot of mayhem going on all over the map, my hands get sweaty because I'm holding on to controller a lot tighter than normal, meaning I'm generating more heat and more wear and tear on the material of the controller. That's what happens. Now, if there are games that doesn't happen for me, but mostly games with high intense action or games that require a lot of reflexes and a lot of twitch thinking and muscles, that happens. And yet there are an abundance of games like that on the Switch right now, whether people want to admit it to themselves or not. There's a crap ton of those games on the Switch right this moment. And again, I'm not saying that, hey, that excuses that the design quality of the Joy-Cons isn't so great, because they break easy. I'm not gonna lie, they do break easy, but there are ways to mitigate the drift issues. I have not heard a single person that complains about Joy-Con drift actually talk about how much they use those controllers and how tightly they hold on to them. Do these controllers get a lot of wear and tear? I haven't seen a lot of people say that. I've seen so many people complain about the drift issue, but I have not seen people talk about this. And there are people with PS5 controllers experiencing this exact same thing. There are people with Xbox Series X controllers experiencing this exact same thing. So I'm sitting here like, it's not an issue exclusive to Nintendo. It's just that Nintendo's the more popular platform in the eyes of the media at the moment. So this is the easiest one to talk about. Of course, there are going to be issues with every controller out there. Each one has a different set of issues. And I'm going to say the only controllers I can think of that have had analog sticks that I have had that I wasn't aware of I'm aware of the possibility of them drifting, but they didn't feel like they would drift, was the Wii Classic controller and the Wii Nunchuck. Those are the only controllers I felt like that the likelihood of drift was low. And that's because of how well they were made. But people act like this isn't a common thing with analog sticks. I'm like, do y'all... I mean, I know some of y'all are new to gaming, but this is an old thing. You can look this up. Let's not pretend it doesn't exist elsewhere. So in short now, look, drift happens on almost anything with analog sticks. Pretty much everything with analog sticks is possible. I'm very certain there are people out there with Wii nunchucks that were busted as hell because the analog stick stuck for them. It's all down to how hard you are holding and using your hardware for your consoles. There is not a single controller out now that I think is with analog sticks that is incapable of drift. So you gotta look into that. Like, people gotta pay attention to what they're doing. Again, more savvy, more experienced gamers know how to hold their controllers in a way that they don't bust them up. And for certain controllers, it is definitely easier. And there are logical reasons as to why it's easier. But don't act like it doesn't exist elsewhere. That's it. Anybody has their own take on the issue and they want to give their thoughts, feel free to. As for me, I'm wrapping this up. Thank you guys very much for listening. Keep your eyes and ears out for more stuff from me. And until the next time, enjoy your games. Peace out.